I was attracted to Renzi for three or four reasons. Number one among those reasons was the wonderful people that are already at Renzi. Renzi's staff is second to none. The second thing that attracted me was the opportunities that the state of North Carolina and the Research Triangle Park offered. The third thing that attracted me was the confluence of three excellent universities, and in fact there are more than three excellent universities in the state of North Carolina. And the fourth thing is North Carolina itself and its people, and it's a beautiful place to live. So all of those factors fed into the decision making of both myself from a professional standpoint, but also my wife and I and my family from a personal standpoint. So Renzi is a different kind of organization than the Ohio Supercomputer Center, where I was director for 6 years. OSC is first and foremost a resource provider. Now, they certainly don't limit themselves to simply that role, but many researchers around the state of Ohio rely, in a very significant way for both their research and their education to be able to access the resources at the Ohio Supercomputer Center. And that's the foundation of their activities. At Renzi, while we continue to have an active participation in the high-performance computing industry, our charter is much broader, and we are expected to perform a more complex set of roles in the state of North Carolina. And it's that very challenge that attracted me to Renzi and the opportunities that are here. Renzi's greatest strengths are clearly its people and its location and its support among the folks in North Carolina, both in terms of the populace. I think we've gotten a really good response from the people out in Asheville and Charlotte and other locations around the state on what Renzi does and what we can do for the citizenry of North Carolina, but also from the leadership of North Carolina. I think it's a real strength that we have good backing from our state leadership, notwithstanding the fact that we had to take some serious cuts in this last economic downturn. I still see a consistent support for Renzi and its mission and its values. So Renzi's greatest challenge is unquestionably to find both a focus and a balance. Focus in the sense that we need to decide exactly what we're going to do to have the greatest impact and play to the greatest extent on our strengths. And we have some very distinct strengths among the ongoing activities and projects already in place at Renzi. We need to emphasize those, we need to put more resources behind them and focus our time and attention to really making sure that those initiatives go as far as they can and have the broadest impact. I think we are challenged in these economic times. We're going to be looking at another round of possible budget cuts in the future, not necessarily for Renzi, but for the entire state governmental system. And that's going to be a challenge for us to understand what our priorities are, and that brings into real question exactly what balance we want to strike between bringing in sponsored research dollars, both federally sponsored research dollars, but also industrial dollars, and what we do as far as service to the state. So within the first, at most 3 months, 4 months, so we're talking 90 to 120 days, we need to establish a clear focus for Renzi that is not only understood internally, but also very well understood externally, so that we, given the fact that we had a number of projects underway, and given the fact that we have had budget cuts, we want to focus our attention on those things that we do the very best. And so the process of going through strategic planning and recasting our role with greater clarity is absolutely foremost in my mind. These 3 or 4 months are precious to us. We have a chance to restate what Renzi does to the state leadership and to our constituents and our investors, the citizenry of North Carolina, and we have to do a good job of that. Now, in the first year, I want to take what we set up in the first 30 30, 60, 90 days and start to implement it so that we can show real results, real return on investment to the state of North Carolina as rapidly as possible. I'm at a stage in my career where I have amassed enough experience that I'm beginning to understand how the various roles that an academic plays, how those roles can interact with the greater community. And I think that we are in a period of tremendous change in our history. We're going through what's been called the knowledge economy shift from an industrial to a knowledge economy. In reality, what we're going through is a shift of global proportions where we're readjusting the way wealth is distributed around the entire globe. And that will naturally call into play the role of the universities in our society. And for me, one of the most exciting aspects of this is how can we reshape the academy, the universities, in order to make sure that they not only continue to thrive and be the very best in the world, because I think U.S. universities are among, if not the leaders of the best universities in the world, but also how they impact society on a more immediate basis. So making the connection between the universities and the societies that those universities reside in is exactly what makes me very excited, and that's what excited me when I was in the classroom and educating students, that you have a real impact. My advice to people who are starting in any field has remained relatively unchanged through the years, because it was a piece of advice that was given to me, and it's profoundly true, but it doesn't sound like it's important. And my number one piece of advice is to learn to write. Because when you learn to write with clarity and precision, your ideas have far more impact than if you simply talk about those ideas, or you write poorly about them and don't convey their true meaning. So the discipline of writing well is something that we're all taught in grade school, and very few of us practice diligently getting better at it. But it's the one thing that pays dividends throughout your entire life. If I had to give a second piece of advice, it would be read. Read broadly, read voraciously, read with every spare moment that you have available to you, because the more knowledge you have, the more you understand about how interconnected things are. And that not only is a good professional advantage, but it's also a personal advantage, because you begin to understand things and enjoy the world around you in a much fuller way.